Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm a conference interpreter since about 30 years. That's a long time. And I'm working with Greek, French, German, and English. And it's a pleasure for me that I have been discovered by Interprefy before all these events. So I was lucky to start and train and work on the platform before.
So I'm a senior product manager at Interprefy, and that means that I look after the direction that the product's going. So all of the new features we're going to add, the new products, and how we're going to help everybody. And I've been working in product management for, well, too long to remember now, in all kinds of businesses, but including originally I started in sound, so I was originally a sound engineer.
I should make a long story short, because my father was an interpreter at the end of the Second World War. He was speaking 7 languages, and so I just grew up in languages, and it was something more or less natural. Later on, I went to conference interpretation as an evolution. Actually, I have to say, when I studied in Greece and to my knowledge in France, there was no studies for conference interpretation. You would study something else, like most of my colleagues of my age, and then later on, you would add linguistics. I have a colleague, he worked for biology with the Nobel team before becoming a conference interpreter. I studied political science, had 3 master's degrees, then went to the Sorbonne and had some trainings on interpretation on language in the US and in the UK. So it's a mixture. Yeah, I think you will like that. It's a very user-friendly platform. I had a colleague joining recently, and he said, goodness, it's so simple. And that's a pleasure. There's only one thing missing. We need a flashlight to people that read their text, and they don't send us the text ahead. Yeah, I think we're professionals, and everybody as a professional is preferring to prepare his mission or assignment, a musician, a doctor. So if people don't give us ahead the necessary documentation, the videos or whatever it is, we cannot prepare. I might have excellent knowledge of political science because I have a master's degree, but sometimes it's not sufficient to imagine what this great speaker is talking about. He has to help me, like he is working with his teams for weeks to prepare. So he should give us a little bit before. I think the most obvious thing is we are a team. And like in tango, you need always 2 to dance. So if he's making a joke about a frog and I say fog, it won't match. Some professional speakers, they come to the booth when booths existed, or even now, and say, I'm going to make a joke about a hamburger, and it will be transformed to that. So I know the joke, and that's for me the professional speaker.
That was really interesting, actually, because I used to deal with the equipment that was like very high end. So, stuff that was very, very expensive, typically several times what my house cost. And it sort of got you to learn not to judge people working in that industry at that time, because of course, you don't expect many people will have those kind of budgets to spend. And I remember the first time I met with one of the most successful producers, record producers. And literally I thought that my first thought when I saw him was that he was a tramp who had walked in off the street. Yeah. And I worked with another record producer who looked and probably was young enough still to be at school. And so you just learned that you never judge people, and particularly in the creative industries, that how people look will have no connection with how good they are at their job. So only a couple of months ago, I'm really new to Interprefy, and I saw an advert on LinkedIn and applied, and I came to Interprefy for a first virtual interview, and then went through the interviewing process. And it's really simple, actually, why I joined Interprefy. It's just because they were the best bunch of people that I'd spoken to in a very long time. And for me, that's what really matters. So how did I get to work for Interprefy? Because I was just looking to work with a great bunch of people. So I'm product managing the product. So I'm looking after the direction of the product, what features and functions we add, what who we will be selling to, and which things to prioritize and which things to do now, which things to do later, so my job is really constantly dealing with many different requirements and ambitions, and trying to steer a path through to mean that the product's going to be as effective as possible for all of the different stakeholders, including, of course, interpreters, but also for the speakers and the people listening to you as well. And if any of that sounds a bit impossible, of course, that's the bit that's fun, is that there is no perfect solution. You are constantly having to try to work out the best path through, and constantly adjusting your ideas and your vision. So yeah, that's effectively what I'm doing day in, day out, is managing and then managing and then communicating those decisions. Oh yes, captions are on their way to tackle that first, and then quite a lot of innovation in the area of captions. And so that's an example of what I've just been talking about, a need that's out there. There are many people who perhaps because of the situation they're in, they need to be able to use captions rather than listen to the audio feed. So that's a really important function, I think, for a lot of our stakeholders. So in terms of the sort of audio processing, and I do know this is a question that comes up, I've worked in this area, of course, for a very long time now, and it's based upon really mathematics that started in the 1970s. And I love this particular area because it's very counterintuitive. The way it works is that you take the very high quality sound and you throw some of it away, and then you transmit it. And what happens is that you actually find that the what is transmitted then is much more robust than if you tried to keep all of the original sound. Now, very obviously, the trick is throwing away the parts of the sound that don't matter. And if you get that right, then you end up with a better result than if you tried to keep everything. Now, this is one of those areas where it's really hard to get your head around both the mathematics and the psychoacoustics. And I've met very few people who who actually could do that. You know, in terms of the quality for sound processing, can we do it better? The answer is yes. Will we make it better? Yes. Is it the weak link at the moment? And the answer is no. There are other things that we need to address. And I would point to, you know, microphones are very variable. There's a whole science behind choosing the right microphone as well, because, you know, as you know, studio microphones are great in a studio, but they're not great in every environment. So yeah, so we, you know, it is something that we are working on and will strive to improve. But audio is, sound engineers always look at audio as a chain, and that every link in that chain has to be the very best it can be. And so compression is one link in that chain, but we have other links that need addressing first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, there is special technology to avoid the loop. It seems to be working, doesn't it? Yes, no, I really appreciate you guys. You have to wear headsets all the time, and I don't think anyone really enjoys it, do they? And I certainly used to have to wear headsets when I was working as a sound engineer. But I do love the fact that with modern processing, a lot of the time we can manage without them. But absolutely, if it's a critical situation, I would be wearing a headset. Yeah, I think the thing that's probably hardest for people to see from outside about the job of being a product manager is that we all think we know an answer to a problem, right? And this is universal. So everyone I'll talk to, and myself, will always think, oh, we've got a solution. But to do the job at its very best, you have to try and forget your preconceptions and ask deeper questions and see if there's a different way of doing things. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the most difficult, but of course, for the same reason, most enjoyable things about the job is this, you know, this process you have to go through of unloading your preconceptions and looking at the problems in a deeper, more fundamental way. And so sometimes, you know, when you're talking to stakeholders, users, and people like that, I think if they start to see the sort of the thought processes that go on, they might think, oh, that's a bit strange. But that's what you're trying to do, is peel back the onion to get to the core.